Do you ever look around and wonder, where did the adults go? As often as we hear people criticizing and blaming the youth, teenagers, kids of all ages, the real question has to be, what happened to all the adults? If the kids are too loud, too aggressive, won't listen, won't follow directions, whose fault is it? When we talk about kids being where they shouldn't be, doing what they shouldn't do, who has to be at the root of the cause? It has to be the parents and it has to be the communities. Before we can look at the young people, we first got to look at the grown-ups who have been charged with raising them. This is the infinite evolution. As often as we hear complaints and excuses about why the kids are the way they are, first we need to look in the mirror and ask, why haven't the adults taken their responsibilities far more seriously? And as easy as it would be to blame and put everything on the parents, they have a huge responsibility. We also got to admit the adults of today are doing a terrible job of setting an example, and the kids are learning. As a kid, the people in your family, the ones who you're closest to, often have a really huge impact, but so do the ones who aren't related. So do the ones who are on social media, the athlete, the entertainer, and all of the people who we uplift. Everything in the comments, all of the TikToks, the Reels, all of it is playing some sort of role in the society that we shape. The question is, what are you contributing and how accountable are you willing to be to the actions that you've taken in order to make this world a better or a worse place? This is the infinite evolution. If the results are poor, we got to look at the process. And who's in charge of the process? Who's in charge of leading the charge? Nobody other than the adults. Nobody is setting an example. Nobody's creating more influence. And nobody is changing the lives of these kids, good or bad, more than we are. So we must be honest. We have to look in the mirror. And if we don't get to complain about the world we created. This is the infinite evolution. When it comes to the leaders, the adults, the parents, all of them, can we honestly say that every single one of us is trying our hardest but coming up short? Or is it more likely that we're cutting corners? Life can be tricky enough to navigate as an adult, but when you are a kid, a teenager, growing up trying to learn just how to be, and so many of the adults are clinically immature, what are you to do? When the coolest people are often the most immoral, what do you think it does to society? What do you think it does to the mind of young people who are impressionable and simply looking for a way to be? They're going to follow and emulate not the things you say, but exactly what it is you do. And as powerful and impactful as the influence of a parent is, they cannot do everything. Once a kid reaches a certain age, you only have so much control over who they become. Society as a whole is shaping their personality. The world at large is shaping who they become, influencing them, showing them how to communicate, how to deal with conflict, how to handle pressure. What are we teaching them? If the future is built on the foundation we lay today, what cause could be more worthy than protecting and honoring our own? This is the infinite evolution. Life is hard enough by itself, but when the people who you trusted to lead you are doing anything but, when the ones who should be setting a good example are the furthest thing from it, you know we got a problem. So what is a kid to do when you look around and the role models you should be looking up to are mean, nasty, negative, divisive, and doing everything they can to tear us down? When we speak to each other, what's the energy like? It's often disdain, negativity, malice. In recent news, we've seen clips of teenagers going viral. Tens of hundreds of kids all gathered in one place looking for something to do. And when you have that many young minds, anxious, energetic followers, there's a far greater likelihood that something bad could happen. But let me ask you, if hundreds of kids are gathered in a place, meeting up to do whatever, where are the parents? Where are the adults in their lives who taught them how to be responsible, who taught them discernment, who taught them not to be a follower, and who taught them to follow your own path? We cannot expect kids to have integrity when the adults don't have integrity. When the adults refuse to grow up, are out turning up, poisoning themselves with who knows what do you think the kids are going to be doing? When the adults are doing everything under the sun other than being productive, what do you think the kids are learning from? They're not listening to what you say, they're learning from what you do. And if what we do is negative, chaotic, mean, what do you think they're going to learn from? What do you think they're going to emulate? This is why we got to be so intentional about protecting our future. And nothing is more emblematic of what the future becomes than what we do in the present with our young minds. This is the infinite evolution. When we look back at the COVID pandemic, so many of us were trapped inside of houses and unable to interact with the real world freely as we wanted to. And as a result, we shifted so much of our lives and personalities into online spaces. But what happens when those online spaces aren't exactly healthy? When the adults live in echo chambers and develop bad habits and can't communicate or resolve conflicts, what do you think the kids are going to learn from? Whether it's in public or online, and we're constantly bickering with each other, using language that can only tear each other down and crumbling our own integrity in the process, what do you think we're doing to the future? The question is, which way are you intentionally moving the needle? Even if you think you're being passive, even if you think it's nothing, it's playing some sort of a role. Are you being intentional about the position you've been playing in shaping our future? When the adults who have money, power, and influence are also addicted to said money, power, and influence, you know we got a problem. When the adults who are supposed to be responsible are addicted to excuses and running from the position that they've been given, you know we have an issue. And if none of us are willing to speak up, say something, and do something, we're going to keep getting the same results and pushing the blame off to everybody else but ourselves. And even if you're not the one putting out tons of negativity, if you aren't spreading light to the world, you're still having some sort of an impact. Silence is an action. Inactivity is a choice. And choosing to do nothing is just as bad as doing what's wrong. Apathy is a mindset that we cannot afford to take if we truly value our future and what our children are becoming. When the adults are allergic to accountability and refuse to see anything beyond their own noses, you know we got an issue. And it's time for somebody to speak up and call it out. The global immaturity crisis is both here and present. The question is, how do we address it, and how much longer will we wait before it becomes a much bigger issue? Because for a society that loves discussing manhood and womanhood, what a real man is, how a real woman behaves, we sure are pretty bad at becoming the best role models and leaders we can be, and proving that our words are not simply passing through air, but actually having some sort of effect. We're often really good at giving advice, but terrible at taking our own. And when it comes to raising our future, we don't have the luxury of being so reckless. So when these type of adults are your role models, success becomes infinitely harder. Developing maturity and accountability becomes so much more difficult because you never had the people to learn it from. This is why we must be different. If the adults are addicted to screen time and brain rot, why would the kids be any different? If the adults are experts at arguing but never listening, why would the kids be any different? If the adults cannot follow directions and refuse to accept the mantle they've been given, how can we ever expect our kids to live up to the greatest that we know that they could become? If the people who know what it's like to not be addicted refuse to do anything to help society overcome what we've been struggling with, what do you think is going to happen? We are slowly phasing out the last generation of adults who remember what it's like where screen time wasn't a major thing. But if those same adults are also addicted, then our future is going to be compromised, because who's being accountable? Who's making sure that the leaders that influence us are worthy of the titles they've been given? If only the most popular, beautiful, wealthy, and controversial are the ones who are monetized and given a platform, maybe it's time to change the algorithm. Maybe it's time to rethink the way we've been doing society in exchange for something better. This is the infinite evolution. When every single day you wake up and commit to being your best, it does something inside of your brain. You slowly build the repetition that makes you into the type of person that others can look up to. And there's no way to fake the process. You cannot imitate the small steps in between. You cannot simulate what it takes in order to be that person. You actually need to go through the fire. It would be hard to pretend to be a person of low morals because you don't even have it in you. But what happens when you practice the opposite? When you become a slave to pop culture and respond to everything that's in your face, even when you know it's not right, even when you know the way you responded could have been better, this is when you become a slave to whatever society says you are. And this is what we can't allow. You choose to maximize the day, and you choose to not procrastinate or make excuses. Maybe another adult, a parent, somebody who has influence is watching what you do and learning from your actions. If you won't live the way you know you should, how will they ever get the reps and see it in real life? What if you're that person that somebody's looking at, somebody's relying on, and somebody is waiting for to step up and become their best self so they can learn from you? You may not want the title, but you have it. It's been said the heavy is the head of the one who wears the crown. Giving it your all means everything, because not only do your eyes see everything you do, but so do those around you. So do the people and family and friends and kids and teenagers and all of it. The society, the social media, the influence, all of it. Every single thing you do, one way or another, especially when others can see it, is tipping the scales either for good or bad. The question is, which way are you willing to move? So how could you not step up and be your best when you know that the future is watching? How can you so easily spread hate, negativity, division, and fear when you know? You also choose to make the future just a little bit darker, just a little bit worse off, and it's all up to you. You had to make a choice either way. Why choose the worst? Either way you're making a decision, why not choose the one that's going to lead to our prosperity? On the other hand, when the world is able to see you as a protector, as a leader, as a giver, as a nurturer, as someone who cares and leads by example, what do you think that's going to do for their education? What do you think that's going to do for their development? When they constantly see adults who care, who lead by example, who don't make excuses, what else do they have but to learn from your example? What type of person are you choosing to create more of? More angry, bitter, upset, and broken people, or more people who are healthy, healed, and ready to create the best world possible? This is the infinite evolution. And none of us, especially not the adults, are getting a pass with this. Maybe in your mind you think that teenagers themselves have far more influence over their own lives than we do. But if we teach them and raise them properly, they have no choice but to spread love and positivity. When you plant seeds of goodness, goodness will grow. But when you plant seeds of division, hate, negativity, what do you think is going to sprout up? Only the worst. You only have 2 eyes, and even less of an idea of just how many more are watching, learning, downloading, and emulating your every move. You may not think you're that influential, but what if you are? So you may tell yourself nobody's watching, but trust me, they are. You may think you're not having an impact, but you're influencing somebody one way or another. The question is, which way is it? The number of people constantly watching, learning, downloading, emulating, all based on you, is constantly growing. Even when you don't see it, even when you don't know that it's there, trust me, it is. All based on your performance, trust me, it's there. So whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, and whether you choose to embrace it or not, your role is critical in this society. The question is, if and when you begin to step up to the plate and become the leader that you were meant to be. This is the infinite evolution. I can still remember as a kid being told that the adults would be wiser, smarter, responsible, more mature, and good examples to emulate, that you could go to and form advice, that you could follow in their footsteps. But as I've grown into a man, speaking to and interacting with other adults, it's clear that there's a gap. Something is missing. Many of the kids from yesterday have grown into adults who don't want to embrace the immense role and responsibility that they've been given. Unfortunately, many of the people who don't want to be role models are some of the biggest role models. And when we allow them to have the biggest speaker, we also allow them to control what our society turns into. Look how easily people are triggered and resort to violence or nastiness when it comes to interacting with each other. But the kids should be better, right? Look how quickly we judge and dismiss others for being flawed humans, but the kids are supposed to be perfect, right? The grown-ups can't be hypocrites or proudly live inside of echo chambers while also expecting the kids to be better. It simply doesn't make sense. And until we start to call out the behavior of adults, we don't have any business talking about the kids or teenagers, because we are the problem. So whether it's kids, teenagers, or even young adults, they're a reflection of what we've given them to learn from. They're not doing anything but emulating us. They're not showing us anything but our own reflection. And if we don't like it, that means we need to look in the mirror, we need to be accountable, and we need to change for the better. If you're not willing to hold your friends and family members accountable for being poor influences, you don't get to hold the kids accountable either. If you're not willing to speak up when you see injustice or take action when you know you should, you don't get to say something about kids. The adults can be lazy procrastinators who are cruel with words, because the kids are learning from us, because the kids are going to emulate it. We don't get to make up excuses about why things look the way they are when we created that world. It doesn't make sense. So whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not, whether you choose to embrace it or not, these kids are looking up to you. The teenagers are learning from you. Even the young adults are being impacted by the decisions you make on a daily. What are you giving them to learn from? What type of example are you setting? Even if you don't want to be one, they say heavy is the head that wears the crown. But whether you like it or not, all of us have been given a crown of responsibility that we must embrace and step up to if we ever want the world to look any different. And it's not only the things we say, but it's also what we do, how we consistently choose to show up and perform, how we treat others, the actions we take, the way we set our goals, how we show discipline. All of it is playing a role, and it's not just you whose life is being impacted. So the next time you think twice about being disciplined, about making the right decision, stepping up when you need to remember that there are others who are watching you and are learning from whatever decision you make. What actions and mindset are you consistently putting on display for them to embrace and emulate? Because it's not the things we say, it's what we actually do that's going to have the real impact. Yes, your words matter. Yes, they might go back and remember them, but what they see on a consistent basis is far more important than what you say. Even when it comes to talking, you can only talk so long, but you spend far more time in your life actually living out whatever it is you believe. So if you're lazy, if you're undisciplined, if you're mean, if you're unkind, that's going to show up in your day-to-day. But if you're the opposite, if you're a leader, if you embrace discipline, if you know better so you do better, if you don't live for excuses, if you know that there are goals you need to chase, and you live in such a way that you won't be denied, those kids are going to learn from that as well. They'll learn to embrace our future. They'll learn to take care of one another. They'll learn to communicate better, and they'll learn just how important of a role they play in helping the next generation. This is the infinite evolution. We hear people say all the time how it takes a village to raise a child, and it does. But when you have a village of the undisciplined, of losers, of meanness, of nastiness, what type of society do you think you'll create? On the other hand, if you just have 2 or 3 adults who are consistent in these young people's lives, who embrace excellence, who are living with the caliber of discipline and structure and integrity, where they simply won't compromise even if the culture tells them to. This is the infinite evolution. Not compromising, not making excuses, and living up to your best, especially because you know there's other people watching. Our minds are incredible, but the mind of a child is like a sponge, able to soak up incredible amounts of input and information. And again, it's not simply the words you say, it's what you actually do. If a person told you they love you, but their actions never lined up with it, which one would you believe? We're keeping that same energy. If an adult told you to be honest, be rational, be logical, treat each other a certain way, but their actions always showed the opposite, which one do you think is going to have a greater impact? What you said or what you actually did? One of the most proven and effective ways to let a kid down and influence them in the wrong way is to break the promises of the character that you were supposed to uphold. Don't let it be you. And the thing is, you don't have to try. Whether you like it or not, whether you're intentional or not, you're having an impact. So choose to be the best version of yourself so that the impact is also the best it could be. You're supposed to be able to look up to your elders, but we now know that age alone doesn't guarantee wisdom or discernment. There must be some character. There must be something inside of you that will not let you compromise, even when it would be easy to, even when there's money and fame on the line. That's what integrity is. That's what character is. And when you don't have it, you don't get to complain or escape blame for the world you created. Every single year, each one of us acquire more time, more life, and more experience. The question is, what do we do with it? Do we share our gifts? Do we share our experience so that others can learn from it? Or do we hoard it all to ourselves and expect the best from everyone else? There's nothing wrong with embracing fun and having a good time, but we also must embrace being the type of adults and leaders that we all will look up to, that we embrace becoming and living up to the type of adult that we would want to be when we were kids. Your two eyes can't possibly imagine the type of impact that you could have simply by living life to the best of your ability, rising up to the occasion and accepting the title that you've been given as leader, as influential, as one of the ones who can impact and change the world. This is the infinite evolution. So don't just talk it, live it by honoring and embracing the very people who are destined to become our future.